Well, President Biden says the CDC's new mask guideline is a step in the right direction. It is, quote, one step in the journey to defeat this fast-evolving coronavirus. The White House is looking to take that effort one step further. Tomorrow, planning to mandate all federal employees to get vaccinated or face what sources call stringent COVID-19 protocols. So, for the latest on this coming out of the White House, let's bring in Nancy Cordes, who is standing by right now at the White House. So Nancy, prior to this, the Biden administration has really shied away from these vaccine mandates. Talk about, what's changed and why they've come around to this.
Well, what's changed is the Delta variant and the fact that cases are rising rapidly all across the country. What has also changed is that the federal government, frankly, thought that there would be a little less vaccine resistance than there has been. And so we're stuck at very low levels of new vaccinations every day, and that is clearly contributing to the fact that we're seeing this rise in cases and hospitalizations. So what we're expecting the White House will announce, and we don't have all the details yet because we're told that they're still working it out, is that the entire federal workforce and contractors, we're talking about 2 million people across the country or more, are going to either have to get the vaccine and prove that they've gotten vaccinated, or they're going to have to get tested periodically. And a big piece of the puzzle we don't know yet is how often they'd have to get tested. Is it daily? Is it weekly? Would they have to get tested on site? Would they have to pay for their own tests out of pocket and then just prove that they've been tested? Those are the kinds of details that are still being worked out. And you're going to hear the White House argue that this isn't technically a mandate because they're not saying, as the VA is, for example. It announced earlier this week that all healthcare personnel at VA centers are going to have to get vaccinated within the next 8 weeks if they aren't already, or they can't come to work. This is not what the federal government is going to be saying to all federal workers writ large. It's going to be saying either prove to us that you're vaccinated or you're going to have to get tested to keep the entire federal workforce safe.
So Nancy, as you know, almost everything about the way this country has handled the pandemic has been politicized. Is the White House concerned about the political fallout of, if it's not a mandate, it's a mandate light, it's a mandate with a small m, of asking federal employees, telling them that they really need to get vaccinated or there will be consequences?
Yeah, I think there's no accident to the fact that this news started to dribble out yesterday afternoon, just as we were getting a flurry of information about changes in recommendations from the CDC when it comes to masking and kids wearing masks in school in the fall and all the rest. Clearly, they were hoping that this would just kind of go into the soup, if you will, and perhaps not get as much attention, because it was only a few days ago that Jen Psaki was arguing to me and others that the federal government really doesn't want to get into the business of requiring that people get vaccinated. And now, this feels quite akin to that. I think one of the things that helps the White House is that they are frankly not alone in taking this step. Just this week, we saw California announce that it's going to be requiring all workers to get vaccinated or get tested. New York City is doing the same thing. Obviously, many private entities are doing the same thing, requiring their workers to either prove they're vaccinated or to get periodic tests. So this is where a lot of both the public sector and the private sector are headed. So at this point, the federal government isn't out in front and alone on this the way it would have been even just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, in fact, a little later in the show, we're going to have that conversation about sort of the legality of a vaccine mandate, even though you make it clear that the president says this is not a mandate, not for the federal employees. Well, let me ask you about something else. This infrastructure bill, the bipartisan one, senators and the White House, they are scrambling to keep this thing alive. What is going on with it? What's up in the air still? Where did negotiations stand? Give us a snapshot.
Incredibly delicate negotiations, Anne-Marie, centering primarily right now on the White House and Ohio Republican Senator Rob Portman as they try to work through some of these outstanding issues that include, and I can just list them off for you, transit funding. That is a big sticking point. Democrats want more funding for public transit than Republicans do. They're also working through things like water infrastructure and broadband, highway bridge funding, how much of unused COVID funds can be applied to this package. There are a lot of outstanding issues. Every time you take care of one, it seems like another one pops up. And then there's all the external pressure that is mounting here. The White House trying to deal with a mini uprising among House progressives who feel that they've been cut out of these talks altogether that have been taking place between the White House and this bipartisan group of senators. And then even if they are able to cut a deal, and there is an incredible pressure to get this deal done this week, there's still no guarantee that it's going to get the 60 votes it needs in the Senate. Just because Rob Portman of Ohio signs off on it doesn't mean that he is definitively going to be able to bring 10 Republican senators along with him, which is the minimum you would need if all 50 Democrats vote yes. So there are still a lot of unknowns here. We know that the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, is pushing to hold a first vote this week. And so this is like a round-the-clock negotiation that's taking place right now as everyone tries to get to the finish line.
All right. So the president, I believe, is going to be in Pennsylvania today. He's pushing his American-made mandate program, and it has to do with increasing the percentage of federal funds that are spent with American companies. But there's pushback. I think he wants to increase it like 60% right away and then more over time. Some people say that's really not enough. What's going on with that?
Well, the White House argues you've got to start somewhere, and you can't make these changes overnight because companies need time to adjust. And so basically what the White House is going to be laying out is, what amounts to a major change to this longtime Buy America rule. Right now, 55% of the value of a product's component parts need to be manufactured in the U.S. in order to qualify as made in America, which gives you preferential purchasing by the U.S. government. The U.S. government has tremendous purchasing power, so this is something that is very attractive to U.S. companies. What this rule is going to say is that they are going to be slowly transitioning that number, moving it higher. So the rule would first be raised to 60% for a little while, and then it would go to 65% by 2024, and by 2029, 75% of any particular product would need to be made with component parts that were also made in the U.S. in order to qualify. The goal here, obviously, is to increase demand for American-made products and thereby increase manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing here in the United States, principally as a means to compete against China economically. And so, it may not be fast enough for some people, but if you are a U.S. company, you're probably pretty grateful that you're going to have a little bit of time to transition your operation to source those U.S.-made parts in order to comply with the new Buy America rule.
All right. Well, we will be watching and listening to what he has to say. There's been a series of executive orders related to it. Nancy Cordes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.